Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go through a new deck profile, a new comprehensive guide for one of the best decks in the format come set 13, and that is Youthberk Full Blast. This is probably one of the popular, most favorite decks across pretty much the whole of Standard. Everyone loves Youthberk, everyone likes, all the edgy knights, and this is the perfect time to kind of do it just before the set drops this Friday. If you guys need any coaching, feel free to hit it up. My Metafy, my link is updated in the bottom right hand corner. It is now metafy.gg/@TheDerekDao. Easy way to kind of remember. Feel free to book a session and we can get started. If you guys haven't done it already as well, click that subscribe button for all notifications on all of the new videos I release on this channel. So Youthberk, one of the strongest, if not the strongest deck come set 13. Obviously we don't have decks like MyGo, and obviously the new Stride deck says we don't have access to that yet. So this is a perfect time to kind of explain how this deck functions. I guess some of the alternatives that you can kind of run, but this deck is actually pretty structurally built, and there's actually very little wiggle room in this deck. But I'll just kind of explain how or why this deck is so good, and I guess going forward, this is probably the deck you kind of have to beat, right? So if you guys are watching this for the Worlds format, this is probably one of the decks you probably have to test for Worlds. So starting with the ride line, so we play Skyfall Arms, the best grade 3 to ride in the, or what to use in the ride line. I'm pretty sure everyone is quite familiar with this now. This is the only time I also get to do a max rarity deck profile, except for maybe some of the triggers. So yeah, just thought I'd put that out there. I am never going to buy this max rarity anyways. So yeah, Skyfall Arms, it just does what it does, discard a card, look top 3, search for 1 and call it, well, grade 2 or less and call it, rest to bottom deck in any order, and then RevolForm after it attacks. Choose a card with RevolForm from your hand and ride it. And the card that you usually go into is Youthberk RevolForm Full Blast. This new card from set 13 is pretty bonkers, very reliant on having Tempest, Gust, and Zest all in your soul to, I guess, perform its full abilities. So just going to read the ability. When this unit is placed on the Vanguard circle by Revoldress ability, can lost 1, perform all the following effects based on the card names in soul. So Zest, Gust, and Tempest. If you have all of the following, then all of your front row gains plus 15k. This is what makes the deck ridiculously strong. Pop this on top of a Persona ride as well. That's a 25k front row boost, which is actually ridiculous. But just going to explain, I guess, each of the additional effects once you have, Zest, Gust, and Tempest in. So if you have Zest in soul, this unit gets a crit. Crit onto the Vanguard is always good. If you have Gust in soul, then again, drive plus 1. The best thing about this is that when you ride into this, you can reset it, and with Sequana to 1 drive, and then it gets plus 1. So it's 2 drives, right? So it pretty much does what Gust does. And then here, if you have Tempest, then choose one of your opponent's rear guards and then bottom deck it. So essentially, this is all 3 of the RevolForms in its separate entities into 1, right? With the plus 15k on top of it, right? Which is why this deck is so good, yeah? It essentially gives you all 3 effects, and you now have cards to kind of support your engine, right? To get Gust in soul, to get Tempest in soul, to get Zest in soul. You pretty much have all of that, right? And then the last effect at the end of turn, then you re-ride something with the Revoldress ability, so which is your Skyfall Arms, right? We don't really need to go through some of the other stuff. So the ride line is just the Youthberk ride line. I guess for those who don't know, the grade 0 is the grade 0, the grade 1, if the grade 2 rides over it, you can soul blast 1, look at the top 3, choose a grade 2 or less unit card, call it to rear guard. If you chose a grade 3 or chose a Youthberk, then you add it to hand. And then the grade 2, if it's ridden by the grade 3, you can cast 1, choose a grade 2 or greater card from your drop zone and add it to hand. So you can start ditching your RevolForms and then add it back to hand. But the best thing about this deck is now you have access to the grade 2 and the grade 1. So this grade 2 is pretty ridiculous. When it's placed on rear guard, you can soul blast 1, search your deck or drop for up to 1 RevolForm and put it into your soul. If you search your deck, shuffle your deck. If your soul has 3 or more RevolForms with different card names, you can soul blast 1 card without the RevolForm, I guess, in the name, and you draw 1 card. Ridiculous card, right? Then you kind of put it on with this bard, the little angel, when it's placed on rearguard from deck during your turn or discarded from hand. If you have a Vanguard with Youth, which is always, then you search your deck for up to 1 card with RevolForm in its card name, put it into hand. If you search your deck, then shuffle. If you put a card into your hand, choose a card from your hand and put it into soul. So essentially the card that you find will then be put into soul, right? The best thing about this card also is that, let's just say you're missing Full Blast in your hand and you have like Tempest already, then you know you can just discard it, find a Full Blast. If you're missing a Zest, then you obviously find the Zest and shove it straight into soul. Essentially, your starting hand, you kind of want to keep this because it's the best card to ditch on the first ride so that you get your Zest and put into soul so it doesn't get damage checked. I guess just going back onto the grade 2, it does have a secondary ability. If your Vanguard is placed by the Revol Dress ability, then this unit gains +5. So there's a 15k attacker in the front row. And yeah, that's pretty much it, right? So then Tempest, you may sometimes, I guess, Revol Dress into this, and if you do, then your front row gains +5, you can count +1. Look, reveal the top 2, choose 1 of your opponent's rear guards that is the same grade as the revealed cards, then you put to the bottom of the deck, put the revealed cards into your hand. Just like every other Revol form, it re-rides into a Revol Dress, which is your Skyfall arms. Similarly, you have Gust, so Gust, when it rides, well, by a Revol Dress ability, then you can discard a card. This unit gains +10k 1 drive. You can usually reset the drives with Sequana, which I'll explain in a little bit. And then just like every other one, you can rewrite down into Skyfall arms. Zest is one that you very rarely ride, right? So if you somehow ride it for some odd reason, then it gains +15, and if you Personate, it gains 1 crit. Yeah, it's terrible. Don't ever Revol Dress into this, okay? Just don't do it, alright? Cool. So I guess jumping towards the Sequana that I mentioned before. So during your turn, if you have a Youthberk Vanguard, then this becomes a 10k body. 10k attacker or 10k booster, really strong behind the Vanguard as well. So you attack for 23 on a grade 3 turn, 33 on Persona Ride. Really strong card, but it's more for the second ability. When your unit is placed on the Vanguard circle by the Revol Dress ability, then put this into soul and then increase or decrease the drives to 1. Very important, because Full Blast, it gains +1 drive. So you reset it first. You use Sequana first before you use Full Blast, and then you get +1 drive, which means that you get 2 drives. Really strong, okay? So that's the second last grade 1. The last grade 1 is Topaz, so the Carbuncle. This card you only run as a 2 of, and probably the most cuttable card. If you want to include something else, maybe like a second Zest, if you're really scared of it moving to damage zone. But yeah, you play 2 because you can only ever resolve 2. Because there's only 4 cards in the ride line, right? When it's placed on rearguard or guardian circle, then you put 2 of your ride lines from drop or soul back to the ride deck face up. Then you perform based on the abilities where it's placed. So if it's placed on rearguard, top 5 call 1, equal to the Vanguard's grade or less, and shuffle your deck, right? If it's not in your main phase, so if for some reason you can call it during battle phase, then it calls as rest, okay? And if it's called into the Guardian Circle, it becomes a 20k shield, right? Gains +15 shield. 20k shield is always welcome in the standard format at the moment, especially in decks that don't run fronts. So yeah, probably the only cuttable card in this deck, because everything else is just really good, right? PGs, so you run 3 of the normal PGs and then 1 Elementari, because this deck can afford to run it. I guess the one time maybe that you might want to consider playing a 4th is if you check it off the grade 2 or check it off Skyfall Arm, but very rarely do you ever see that happen, right? And then the triggers, so you play 4 heals, you can play effect heals depending on the meta that you're playing in. I don't think that there are many that are too relevant. Maybe the restand one, because now you have to deal with Jejute Ignis, Youthberk Full Blast. Oh no, Youthberk Full Blast doesn't work because a new unit comes into play. Something like Bastion Accord because they have Sapient Owl. So yeah, restanding heals is actually pretty good, right? You play 8 crits, maximizing on the crit pressure because you essentially have quad drive with this deck, and then playing 3 draws. 3 draws, it can be, I guess, changed to fronts if you feel that, you know, you're drawing too much. Then you can play fronts, play a bit more aggressive, and then you play the 1 blue OT. I think the blue OT is ridiculous in this deck, being able to salvage like Full Blast, your PGs, like really, really strong. Salvage your Sequanas. Yeah, blue OT in this deck is really, really strong. Keta OT, I think you deck out too fast because you're attacking Vanguard, Rearguard, and if you somehow have like, you know, Rearguards with like more than 1 check, then, you know, it gets a little bit tricky. But yeah, the blue OT just has a lot of functions, so I think the blue OT is the best, but not to say that you can change the blue OT to something else, especially if you're on a budget. You can definitely run the Keta OT or even just the 200 million, the Cray Elemental OT, the normal one. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much the deck. Like I said, the most cuttable card is Topaz, but I think Topaz's role in this deck is really good. Given that you run 4, 8, 12, 13 grade 3s, you need space for shield. You really, really need shield in this deck. If your hand suddenly gets clogged with grade 3s, then there's not really much you can kind of do. The most important cards to kind of keep in your opening hand is the Bard and a Full Blast. That's pretty much what you want. And if not, then, you know, you want to get multiple of the Bards, multiple of the grade 2 to kind of cycle through all of your Youthbergs, right? Because you need 3 the moment you get to grade 3 to get the full effect, right? Why is this deck so strong? This deck is really strong because it can achieve the 3 conditions to get plus 15k the moment that you ride onto grade 3. So if you go first, going with this deck into pretty much any deck that is pre-existing in the meta already, it is just so strong, right? The fact that you get plus 15 to the front row straight when you get to grade 3 is, yeah, it's insane power creep. Really, really strong, right? Not only that, you also get a crit that your opponent has to deal with. In this format, we don't have Heal Guardians to neg crit. It gets an extra drive, so if you have Sequana, you get a twin drive, which is pretty crazy. And then you just bottom deck your opponent's rear guards. If they try to rush you, it's just really, really punishing to your opponent as well. So yeah, this deck is just really, really strong at the moment. Definitely one of the top, if not the best contender for Worlds. Definitely a deck to kind of look out for. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to switch to CFA to kind of simulate this deck and just kind of show you guys what mulligans you kind of want to see and just kind of how to progress through the first few stages of the game. Afterwards, it just becomes rinse and repeat of essentially what I do on the grade 3 turn. Just keep rewriting to Full Blast, keep Persona riding, and then yeah, that's pretty much it, right? So just going to shuffle the deck and just kind of see what cards I draw. So starting with these, this is really good. This is a really, really good hand, right? You have the Bard and you have the grade 2 and a Full Blast. That is essentially what you want, right? Now, you need 3 ways to, I guess, get Gust into Soul, right? Before we go into the CFA segment, right? I just want to go back and kind of indicate what changes you can kind of put in. So if you're taking out Topaz, an alternative would be Drilling Angel. Drilling Angel allows you to put a card from your drop into your soul. That means you have more cards to kind of fuel for the Youthberk Full Blast engine. Other ones would be like, what's it called? The angel the grade 1 angel where like after a painkiller. So after you attack, soul blast 1, retire and draw 1. That way you can start churning through your deck to try to find what you want in the early game. Other than that, that's pretty much like the 2 cards that would fit well in this deck. Otherwise, you can try run a second Zest if you feel that, you know, it's punishing if you don't see it. So yeah, you can run a second Zest if you like, but I think this deck is as cookie cutter as it gets. I think this is the perfect list, I think. But yeah, don't quote me on that. So let's jump back to CFA. So we're just going to go through the opening hand. So obviously the cards that we want to return is the draw, and I guess we can keep the Gust because, well, actually we don't really want the Gust, because if you want to discard it, then you kind of want it in Soul. But the good thing is that like the Bard allows you to put anything in Soul. You actually want to find more Bards and more of the grade 2s. So you actually want to return the Gust. So the perfect hand is pretty much 3 of these, well, 3 of a combination of these 2 cards, and then a Youthber Full Blast, okay? So you draw 2. Alright, so we got 3, that's it. Alright, that's game over, okay? Then the last thing we're missing is a Persona Ride, but we'll get to that, okay? So just gonna shuffle the deck. Alright, let's draw for turn. So the first card you ditch 100% is the Bard. That is 100% the card that you ditch, because essentially when you ride to grade 1, you activate the Bard's ability, you search your deck for a RevolForm, you put it into hand, right? And the first card you find is Zest, 100% of the time, alright? If you get this in the starting hand, if you don't find Zest, that's a misplay, alright? Don't do it. Find a Zest, put it into hand, and then the Bard skill is that because I search a card from my deck and put it to hand, I put a card from my hand into Soul, straight away you just put the Zest into Soul. Cool, that's one of the 3 Exodia pieces for this deck. Call it a day, alright? We're gonna end turn, your opponent, you know, attacks for 1 line, I'm gonna go for 15, alright? Pretty cool. Alright, stand and draw. Now, guarding for 15 is actually really important, right, in this particular deck. The reason why is because you're guarding 15, that means that the possibility of Zest, let's just say you didn't have a Bard, the possibility of a Zest going into damage is lower, right? Because you're not taking the damage, right? If you draw it, then cool, that's good, right? If you draw it, then that means your Bard can put it into Soul, which is fine, yeah? Alright, so continuing on, so here, we'll ditch the Bard again. If you have the Bard in hand, just ditch it for ride line, it's just busted. So you ride this. Then the grade 1 skill procs. So the grade 1 skill, I think check top 3 for Youthberg or a grade 2 or less. Grade 2 or less you call it. Youthberg you add it to hand, so these 3. So this is a little bit awkward. I guess we'll call the Topaz. There's not really other ones that you kind of want to call because you can't really cycle them. So put the rest at the bottom in any order. It doesn't really matter to us because we're going to shuffle the deck later anyways. So you call this the bar. Okay, you can kind of place it on rear guard because then you want the Sequana at the back for 23. But then again, you know, if you're attacking for 8, it's like 21, so it doesn't really matter. But in terms of scaling, I think it's better, right? So we'd leave it there, call it a day. The Bard skill, then you search for the next card. So in terms of priority, Zest first, right? Zest is because you're only playing a one-off, then Gust, and then Tempest, right? So you find a Gust, put into hand, shuffle your deck, and you shove the Gust into Soul. Alright, then the next card here, then you play this. Fergosa allows you to Soul Blast 1. Do not Soul Blast your RevolForms. Alright, so Soul Blast 1, so Soul Blast your grade 0 Youth. Then you search your deck or drop for a RevolForm and put it into your Soul. So, which is why you can actually keep the Full Blast, because then this card can actually put it from your discard into Soul. Right? But, I mean, if you have 3 of these, it doesn't really matter, right? So you search your deck for the last one, which is Tempest. Alright, cool. Now we've got our 3, put into Soul, call it a day. Right? That's what we want. Okay? So now your opponent, you're going first, so you attack for 10, check a trigger, Full Blast is pretty good, and then 18. Yeah? Alright, so your opponent rushes you back. Let's just say that 3-line you, take 1. Okay, so the heal is like pretty annoying here. If you put the heal on the Vanguard, then that means that you might not get the second damage. I think the second damage is really strong, right? Because when you ride on top of grade 3, your grade 2 Youth needs a CB. So I'm just going to place on rear guard and then take the second damage. Cool. Call it a day. Alright, so we're going to ride into grade 3, so stand and draw. Alright, now this is good. So you can actually dish the Full Blast to salvage it back, right? So you dish the Full Blast, Right into this, the grade 2 allows me to counterblast 1, search for a grade 2 or less from your drop zone and add it back to hand. So you have one full blast for this turn, you want a full blast for the next turn, you can keep this. Now another thing that you could do is you can keep the Fergosa, but then again, you know, if your front row is getting plus 15k, the Topaz is actually a pretty decent attacker. So we can keep the full blast in hand. Alright, so then the next thing, we don't really need to discard to kind of look into our deck at this stage. So you put the Topaz in front, Sequana here, Sequana gains +2 because now you have a Youthber Vanguard, and then the Fergosa. Fergosa is pretty good here because now you can Soul Blast 1 and essentially get your your draw 1. I actually missed a draw 1 before, but I guess like in terms of soul it doesn't really matter because you would have been soul blasting a RevolForm. Okay, so here you can soul blast 1, search your deck. You want to thin out all your like garbage like RevolForms now because you're not going into them. You want to go into full blast, so you put 10% to soul. And then now I can soul blast something that isn't a RevolForm. So I dish, oh sorry, not the Tempest, that is a RevolForm. So I ditch the grade 2 and I draw 1. Okay, wow, now I have 3 full blasts. That is yeah, probably not the card that you really want at this stage. But anyways, doesn't really matter. So you hit for 23, draw check 1. Alright, crit's pretty good. So you get a plus 15k to the front row because once you run into full blast, you get the whole effect. So this will become 15 because I'll play the full blasts, and then plus 15 is 30. So 30 is a really good number. So I'm gonna place that here, put crit onto Vanguard. Let's just say your opponent no guards, and then the second check is heal. Heal's pretty good. So I'm gonna place that here and then heal 1. Alright. Then we ride into full blast. Before you activate full blast's ability, you put Sequana into soul so that you I guess reset the drives to 1. Okay, then you activate full blast. Now because we have the condition of having all 3, then it gets plus 1 crit, plus 1 drive, and I bottom deck an opponent's rear guard, which you know they would have committed because they attack 3 lines, and then the front row gains plus 15k. Yeah, and best thing is that because Sequana goes into soul, now it's a card that you can use for your Fergosa. Right? As Fergosa, you know, cycles through, then you know you start using your Sequanas to meet the requirement of its second part of the skill. Okay, so now it's plus 1 drive, so it's twin drive plus 15 to the front row. My Fergosa gains plus 5 because my RevolDress ability is placed onto the Vanguard circle. So attack for 28 with crit. Right? Check twice, so check 1, crit. Whew, man, if I keep checking like this, I'm winning worlds. Right? 43, 30k there. Yeah, the numbers are pretty ridiculous, and your opponent's like, oh, can't really guard this. Let's just say, you know, they guarded the middle columns, like whatever, right? 10k 1 crit onto rear guard there, and then a PG, right? Then you're hitting for 40 and 43. That is absolutely disgusting numbers. On a grade 3 ride, that is 4 attacks, like that is over 15k shield. For any of those attacks, ridiculous, right? Sure, I got like 3 triggers, but if you neg 3 triggers there, that's like a 33, that's like a 20, it's like whatever, right? But yeah, the sheer power of this deck is ridiculous, right? Let's go through one more turn. So, you know, your opponent, let's just say I guard like 30k and then take 3 damage, so to say. So 1, 2, 3, yep. And then I hit a draw, so I draw 1. Cool. Alright, let's get to our turn. Stand and draw. And then we'll Persona Ride. Oh, sorry. The RevolDress would have rewrote down into this. Cool. And then we Persona Ride. Draw 1. Alright. Now this is where Skyfall Arms is good, right? Because our board is not very great. So let's put the Topaz back. And let's ditch the draw. So now I get to look at the top 3 cards for a RevolForm or a grade 2 or less card and call it. So top 3, ooh, Fergosa is really good. So Fergosa, when it's placed on rear guard, then it can do its, you know, shenanigans. So let's put those to the bottom. Fergosa's skill, I saw an OT as well. So now it's at the bottom, I can shuffle my deck now. So Fergosa, for the first skill, you want to Soul Blast duplicates. So you Soul Blast the Tempest, search the deck for, I don't know, Tempest, I think that's the last one, if I'm not mistaken, put into Soul, and then you Soul Blast a non-RevolForm, so you Soul Blast, I don't know, Sequana is really good, so Soul Blast 1 and then you draw 1, right? That there is just really good, right? The only thing that we're missing now is a Sequana, which is a little bit unfortunate, but you know, we do what we gotta do, right? Hand's pretty healthy, so let's just keep it as it is. So 23 at the Vanguard, check 1, check 2. Topaz is good because we need stuff to recycle, and then we'll ride into Full Blast. Full Blast is skill, plus 15k to the front row. Gains 1 crit, 1 drive, bottom deck's a card for CB1, and then each of these gain plus 5. We only have 1 drive here, which is fine, so 38, 1 drive, check 1. PG is always welcome. Double PG means that we get through an OT, and then 40, 48. So yeah, that's pretty much the simulation on kind of how the Youthberk deck kind of works. So just going back to, I guess, the deck list that I showed before. So for those of you guys who want the deck code, I'll put it in the description as well. It is QEAS for Youthberk Full Blast. This deck is ridiculous. I think it's one of the best decks in the format, so definitely get on this train. There are some cards that are a little bit pricey, but if you have Youthberk from before, this deck is nuts. Definitely get on it. The good thing about this is that the grade 2 and the grade 1 are all double rares, so finding them is actually pretty easy. The only ones that is, I guess, a little bit hard, a little bit pricey might be the Full Blast itself, but you know, you gotta pay, you know, a good deck. This is a good deck, so, you know, the cards are naturally going to be, you know, a bit more expensive than some of the other ones. And yes, that is pretty much it for the comprehensive guide for Youthberk Full Blast. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, pop a like, comment down below what you guys think of this deck. Have you guys played it? Did you guys play it in the JP format? Give me some tips, give some people watching this video some tips in the comments down below. If you guys haven't already, click that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.